Recording. Linda, hello. Your fans await. I'm not muted. Your mic is not on. You want to turn your volume up, or you did something in the last 2 minutes since you last talked. Let's just pick some. Tony, can you unmute yourself and speak into your microphone?
Yes, what do you want?
Okay, thank you very much. Now you can mute yourself again. Linda, maybe you want to try and leave and come back in? That might work for you. Give that a try. So while Linda's starting, trying to get in here, well, it looks like Linda's left now. Good. I'll go ahead and get the meeting started. So again, thank you everybody for attending the call. We have about 10, 12 people here on the... Somebody just logged in. Who is this?
Hi, it's Diana.
Hi, Diana. Great. Can you mute yourself? John Schick, is that you?
That is me. So yeah, let me do that.
I'll mute you for you. So I muted yeah. So we're just going to go ahead and get started. Thanks for everybody joining. I appreciate some of the technical issues. Linda, welcome back.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
I can. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We must have had some weird thing going in there. So welcome everybody to the Writers Cooperative meetings. It's our third one we're doing here via Skype. The last two have been very successful. Just to remind everybody to mute yourselves at all times because we'll be having Linda give the presentation. Any questions will go into the chat window. And if people are running on their desktop or in their mobile device, there's a little icon that says chat. If you click on it, it will open up a little chat window and you're free to say hello into the chat window. And everybody will see that. If you have any questions during the meeting for Linda while she's giving the talk, go ahead and put them into the chat window and we'll go ahead and have her answer those either as she sees them or I'll chime in to ask her the question just to keep the chatter to a minimum. Also remember, do not share your webcam. We do know you're beautiful and we know Susan Brown is freshly bathed. So
Me too.
I know.
Me too. I showered for you guys.
Susan even showered and she's not even on camera. It's amazing.
No, I'm Linda and I showered.
You even showered too. So we have freshly bathed people here on the call.
And I dressed up.
So we'll begin shortly. The first thing that some of you guys may have missed out is we had the Hemingway Hour earlier this week, I think on Monday, which is where a bunch of writers got together to have some drinks. Turns out that no one's an alcoholic like Hemingway was, and we all drink milk and orange juice and water for the most part. So that was kind of sad, but it was very fun. We had about an hour and a half chat. We had some technical difficulties, but I think it went pretty well, and we enjoyed ourselves, and I think people learned a little bit about each other. And then for today's agenda, we're going to have Linda give us a nice talk about writing sales copy, the challenges of that, why it's important. And then Joel is going to go ahead and give us hopefully a little update on the anthology if necessary. And then what we do is we'll talk a little bit about our upcoming meetings, the one that we're doing today, and then the ones that are coming up. All right. So is there any critical thing here? Send them a link. Got another email. How do I include them? Tony, what's the issue? You want to unmute? Okay, so forward them the email if you can. It's the same link. It should be able to get them in here. For those who haven't come before, on our members page on the Writers Co-op, we have links to the previous talks and then the recordings of those talks. So if you want to go ahead and listen to those. That was a 2-part editing talk given by Susan. And we went ahead and recorded those, and those are on our private YouTube page. So those are not shared widely. You can share the links, it's okay, but they're not listed for general search. And at the end of this talk today, I will then upload this recording right now to the YouTube page for you to be able to review on your own time. So without any other questions, Linda, if you wanted to get going, let me pull up your slides here real quick. Writing sales copy. And Linda, all you got to do is just call out and just tell me, next page or
Okay.
whatnot. I'll try to get out ahead of you there.
Okay.
So.
I hope everybody's doing well. I miss all of you, and I wish we were doing this in the same room, but it's going to be a while apparently. I can't wait to see y'all again some year. Anyway, the book description that I'm going to talk about, this is all part of your marketing that goes on your Amazon page. It's a crucial piece of it. First, people will look at your cover, then they'll look maybe at the title, then they go right to the sales copy. This is also the blurb that you put on the back of your book, that you post on Facebook. If you have a place on your website where you have book descriptions, this is where you put it. So you need something that is strong and powerful and makes people demand to buy your book. Next slide. Okay, now the first thing that we run in about is writer problems. Writers go to write their blurb and they can't see beyond the plot. Where they need to tell a reader why the reader would want to buy the book. And most of us have an inability to hype ourselves. It's the way we were brought up. But one thing that you can do is try to hype yourself as if you were writing about somebody else, somebody a writer who you admire and just love everything they write. If you can get into that mindset, that might help you. Next slide. Please, this is where you use all the cliches, all the buzzwords, things that a reader's going to grab onto, like this rollicking action adventure story, things like that, because that's going to be the things that your reader goes, oh my God, this is just my type of book. You want to use, you don't have to use full sentences, good grammar. Sorry, Susan. And you're basically just using short, punchy things, because you've got maybe 2 seconds for a reader to read your sales copy. They're not going to read the whole thing. 90% of them aren't, at least. And me, if I see a big chunk of text on the back of a book, I go, no, I don't want to know the whole story. I want to know if this book is for me, and that's it, because otherwise, why do I read the book? So thrillers, pulse pounding thrill ride on the edge of your seat. Readers are used to being hyped when they read book descriptions. It's one of your tools. And next slide, Matt.
Yeah.
So you want to if you write your blurb and you feel like you're going over the top, you're probably about halfway there. So keep going. And you're keying the reader into what they want to read. Some people who write blurbs don't go any further than the first chapter when they're writing what's in the description, or the first page, a page and a half if it's a short story. You can leave that up to you, but you don't want to go too far into the book, because otherwise, why would they want to read it? The other thing is are, what, has, was, where, were, will. Those are all really passive words, and you don't want to use those in your blurb. That's the least thing that you want to do is have something that's passive. Next slide. Matt?
Yeah, it takes a second for my screen to update for you. So.
Okay. There's several different formats you can use for blurbs, and you can invent your own. You want it to be short. And next slide. I'm going to walk you through. This is one particular format that works really well. No matter what format you're using, if you can begin with a hook, that's the first thing. That's the best thing you can do. And when you're writing your hook, you need to make the stakes high. If it's a mystery or a thriller, they better be death. And if it's a fantasy, it better be death somehow. The death of the world, the death of a lifestyle, the death of something. Romance, it better be love, better be in that first line. If you're writing nonfiction, or if you're writing I don't know, literary fiction, you better be talking about enlightenment. And enlightenment, when I'm talking, that's a pretty vague term. If you're writing not a nonfiction science book, it's not so much enlightenment, spiritual enlightenment. It's knowledge. What's this book going to teach them? You need to put that in the first line. Next slide. And that's all in paragraph 1. In the very first line. The next, after that hook, you want 2 to 3 lines about the character of the world, and you must nail the genre, because you're trying to key the reader in that this book is in their genre. If they're a reader who only reads mysteries or thrillers, and yours is a romantic suspense, they need to know that, or they're going to be pissed off when they start to read your book. You need to make this as interesting as possible. Basically, what you're trying to do is you're trying to take them from that hook and pull them all the way through to the very end where you put your call to action. And so everything should move from that very first line, and you got to keep their interest up. Next slide. This is where you're putting your cliffhanger. This is the plot kicker. This is the plot kicker line. This is where you basically want them going, oh, I can't. I have to get this book. God, it sounds so interesting. And you want to make sure that you're sticking with how all this is affecting your main character, because this is a big deal. Readers are reading for the most part for character. They're reading fiction for character. I'll talk about nonfiction blurbs in a bit, but for fiction, you got to keep them interested in that character. And these slides are going to be online, so if you want to go get the notes, then you can. The next slide. Now, the fourth paragraph, this is your last paragraph. This is your most important paragraph after the first. You got to get it so that the reader buys the book. This is where you would praise it, like, this mind-bending science fiction novel is a delight for, science fiction readers. I can't come up with blurbs off the top of my head. I have to write them down. And you end it with a call to action using words like buy, discover, explore, pick up, whatever works for you. This paragraph wants to be really short. You want to break these paragraphs up when you're posting your blurb on Amazon or any other place you're putting them, because you want the reader to see, oh, these are bite-sized little chunks. Yes, I can keep reading this, and they get to the end, and bam, you end with that call to action so that they will go and do it. I know it sounds hokey, but it works. The next slide. There's a lot of stuff you should be leaving out of your blurb. And I know it's tempting to put it in, but this is just a tease. This is not the full story. Don't put subplots, side characters in the blurb. I don't put places in the blurb normally because it takes too long to describe the worlds I'm writing in fantasy or science fiction. The name, I would probably use the first name of the character. And if there's two characters, I might put that. If there's two main characters, viewpoint characters, I might put that blurb in. That second character's name in the blurb. But basically, you got to keep energy moving through that blurb. Next paragraph. You want to vary your sentence length. That's important. You want to end sentences with harder, punchier words. Read it out loud, because good writing has a rhythm to it, and a blurb should have a rhythm. And some of it should be short and punchy, but you want it to be alive. You want it to stand up off the page and slap the person across the face and say, "Buy my book." Well, maybe not slap, but you want it to get going. Next paragraph, nonfiction. Nonfiction is just slightly different. You still want to use a hook in your first paragraph, but you want to talk about why the reader would trust you as a writer. What expertise do you have? And how they're going to benefit in the second paragraph. And the third paragraph, if you need to cram in a third paragraph that's more about the book, go ahead. The last paragraph should be the selling paragraph and the call to action. It's the same basic format. And fancy stuff, go ahead and experiment. There's a bunch of different structures, for romance, for setting. You can use your, if you are somebody who writes mood brilliantly, write a whole blurb that's focused on the mood of the book. Same with plot, but make sure you're talking about those characters in whichever one you use. The next slide. Use less words. You want to make it punchy, short. I see too many blurbs that are just so long and I just walk away. Next, practice. The one thing that most of us don't think of is that we need to practice sales copy. It's a totally different discipline than writing a novel or a short story, and it's different than poetry. And if you don't practice, you're never going to get good at it. It would be a good idea. I go back periodically and rewrite all of my earlier blurbs when I update covers and all the keywords and things like that. And it's amazing the difference that you find that comes up when you do stuff like that.
Linda, we had a question from Joel about using
sure.
a question at the beginning of your blurb, like, what if your world exploded into fire, or something of like
Right.
dramatic like that. Is there any guidance there?
I think that it can be powerful if it's the next question, but if it's a question that somebody could answer, so what, or something like that, you don't want to put that opportunity into someone's brain. But they can be powerful. Sometimes a statement is more powerful. That's why I say you have to figure out if what the possible answers are to the question. Ask Joel or Tony to respond to it, and then you'll know, because
Okay.
they would come up with the snark.
Are there some examples of blurbs that you're going to show here?
I'm going to show one, and
Okay.
but basically, think of blurbs are genre specific. The words that are used. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to go to Amazon and to read and Google, top 100 science fiction books, top 100 thriller books, top 100 romances, and read the blurbs for those, and you'll find out pretty fast what the what the language is for each of those genres. Because, me telling you what a good fantasy blurb is doesn't necessarily make a difference. But are there other questions? I've got more slides, but are there other questions?
Tony just wanted to confirm that her expertise is snark.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so practice. So the next slide. Okay. I took that, the last time that Brian Cohen did or maybe it was the first time that he did the 5-day Amazon ad challenge. He had us take one of our books that we were trying to advertise and write 20 blurbs for it and choose the best one. And he's a specialist in copywriting. And so I did, and I was surprised at the huge impact difference that I could come up with in writing 20 different blurbs. And it was hard to choose the right one. We posted them all in the Facebook group, and other people read them and said, "Oh, this is better. This is better." Because after you write 20 blurbs, your brain is mush. Let me see. But yeah, it just do it. Practice. Next slide. And there's 2 books on writing sales copy that I recommend. One by Dean Wesley Smith, How to Write Fiction Sales Copy, and Brian Cohen, How to Write a Sizzling Synopsis. They're both really good books. They're a start, but they're nothing if you don't actually do the actual work. So, next slide. Examples. I have a couple of examples, or an example here of an old and a new. So next slide. This is my old description. I'm not going to read it to you because you can read faster than I can read it. But it's 130 words, and this one's pretty long for me.
What maybe Linda, what went through your mind as you were rewriting this blurb here?
Well, I didn't have a hook at the beginning, and the character doesn't come in till the second paragraph. And this is better than the one that I used in the release. The one I used in the release, I don't think the character came in until the third paragraph. And I don't feel like, I talked about her emotions until like the third paragraph. And so I just kind of felt like it didn't connect with the reader. And so my goal was to shift those things and really find a hook for it. So the next slide has the newest version. And I don't know if it's better, but it's shorter. It's punchier. I'm happier with it. I don't think it can never be done. It's one of those things that you could continually rewrite and rewrite and rewrite till it gets better.
How important is it to call out the series in the blurb, do you think?
Well, I think it's important. I mean, because I'm trying to get people to move through the series, and I don't always. People are just weird. Readers are weird. They miss so much in terms of because we're all reading really fast, and when you have a book description, people read bits and pieces of it, and they read bits and pieces of the Amazon page, and I just kind of wanted to, and the line about the islands of the Seattle series is now complete with book 5. I wanted to make sure people knew that all the books were out, because there's a tradition in fantasy now of not reading a series, not even starting a series unless all the books aren't published. Thank you, George. And so I wanted to make sure that everybody knew it was complete, so that they go out and buy all 5. So I don't know that the last one needs to be there. Um, but because my books are not, they're not standalone series, they're sequential series. If you don't start with book one, you're screwed. Basically. I It's possible, I suppose, that somebody could come in on book 2 or 3 and figure out what's going on, but they're missing most of the ride. So I wanted to make sure that everybody knew that this starts at 1 and it ends at 5, and
Okay. I had two additional questions, and
yeah,
they're kind of leading because I do this as well. In your description here, you have bold and italicized text.
yeah.
How important is that in the description blurb on your Amazon page? And then as a follow-up, how important is it to include quotes from reviews? I've been seeing a lot of that lately. Are you starting to include that as well?
Well, I do sometimes. Okay, I'll address the second one first. The quotes from reviews, I sometimes go through and find pieces that are good. But I don't quote the whole review. Like complex characters, strong magic, and dragons. That might be from somebody's review. Or it might be just the verbiage that is used in that genre, that I find in other stuff. So I pick and choose. I don't ever quote, says such and such and such and such. I noticed that some people are putting that on their websites. And I think that's kind of interesting, to have your book page on your website and then have a description, and then at the bottom have readers' thoughts, and then, say Sally S from, Sally S says, that kind of stuff. But I don't want to put somebody's quote unless it's somebody who is recognizable. If it were Robin Hobb saying that, my book is fabulous, then hell yes, I'd put it on there. Or George R. R. Martin, or somebody who's writing in my genre. But just some Amazon review, it's probably not. Robin Hobb is a Tacoma writer who writes doorstop books that are they come out and they hit the top, the number 1 on the New York bestseller list all the time. She's fabulous. Her real name is Megan Lindholm, but she's been around for decades, and she's awesome. But you really want to you really want to pick and choose, and Tony's doing a really cool thing that where she's putting reviews up on her Facebook page. But I think in a book thing, you can use the wordage that they're using if you like what it's saying about your book, but it has to be a piece of the thing. And as far as the italics and the bold in the Amazon page, I know you can do it. You have to know how to code, and I don't know how to code. And so none of this bold and italics will show up on the Amazon page. It will show up on Kobo. It will show up on D2D. It will show up on some of the other websites. If you have it in bold and you just copy and paste. This is what I'm putting on the back of my book. So basically, I'm formatting it so it looks pretty on the back of my book, and it gives an accent to the pieces that I want accented on my book cover. So that's why I do it. And if I really was invested in doing it on Amazon, you can do it. You can do it in code there.
Just to jump in real quick, I added a link to the Kindlepreneur site on how to do that.
Oh, okay.
In the chat. So basically, just not to jump in, but Amazon book description generator. So if you come in here and you type, this is a test, and you can play around with the size, choose what you want. You can make it bold, italicized, whatever. And then you hit generate my code. You can then copy all of that. Now this is copied into your dashboard in the KDP dashboard. So then
cool.
you can copy that straight in. So you can do a lot of formatting.
Cool.
Here, I found this to be an easy tool for you to use. So I put it in the notes as well.
Thank you, Matt.
No
That's
problem.
awesome. Yeah, so I think that's the last slide, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, yeah, it's most of what you learn from copy editing is one, practice, and two, go and look at other people's stuff. Go and look at the bestsellers in your genre and your subgenre and see what they're doing. And, try to find the ones that are not written by New York. Sometimes those are, sometimes New York is really good and sometimes they're not. Sometimes indies are much better at marketing. Because New York is way behind the times. So
Awesome.
that's what I've got to say. If there are no questions.
Are there any questions, comments? Does anybody want Linda to gut their description for free? Is anybody looking for some critique? And I will raise my hand if nobody else wants to. Let's see, somebody's commenting. Roland, maybe. Does Roland want his cut? Roland, do you want Linda to look at your blurb? We won't rewrite it. We're not going to wordsmith it, but maybe some tips and pointers. I can. Tony's standing up. Well, while we wait, here's Tony's.
Yeah, the hardest thing for me is to do the hook.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, she's got a pretty good hook there.
So would her hook be the second paragraph or be the first one?
I would cut the first one, period.
Okay.
If it were me, I would cut the first one. I would begin with the second one because that's where your hook is. You start with Mildred and her retirement, and is this the first book?
This is book 1.
Okay. God, I need new glasses. Expected a comfortable retirement. And I just lost it while I was reading it, but okay, there we go. Desperate, she takes on a job available local. Okay, so the last, I would move up a breathless page turner in restless shoes, insensible shoes. Sorry, I would add she doesn't have a selling thing on that, selling line on that. I would say something like "Discover Mildred's World Today" or something like that, and put a call to action on the end of that puppy. There's not much else there's not any fat here to trim particularly.
So a call to action here after a breathless page turner and sensible shoes.
Yeah.
And adding some punctuation here, typo. Yeah. Because her other 2 books are right below. So
yeah.
Okay.
And get that 4th book on there. If Amazon doesn't put it on within a week, Tony, I would write to them and tell them that the 4th book is part of that series, and you have to make sure everything aligns, the title, subtitle, and that stuff. But
good question from Deanna regarding a short story blurb being she's afraid it might be too long since it's a short story. Is there any issue or any concerns that you should have for short stories as opposed to novels or novellas?
Well, it says I would say don't go further than the first page and a half of the story in terms of description of the story. That's the difference between the two. Otherwise, I would treat it right exactly like I would a novel. And I would keep it short. I would keep it punchy.
Okay.
And I see John also has a question about John Schick has a
Oh,
question.
that is Deanna. Yeah.
That's Diana. Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't want to suggest erotica. Didn't want the blurb to be longer. So I assume it's romance. Is that a yes?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
So you need to put love in that first line. And basically give us what the crux of it, what's going to happen if she doesn't find love. I don't know if there's a person on that first page and a half who she's meeting up with. I would think that there would be, but I haven't read it, so I don't know. So if there is a person who she's meeting up with in that first page and a half, get both of them in there in that blurb in some fashion about what are they struggling against? What's the first problem that her main character has?
Okay, we have another question here from Roland. Roland, did you want to unmute yourself real quick and then maybe just introduce what you're talking about here?
That's the blurb from Amazon as it is right now on that book of lyrics I did.
Okay, the one that's in the chat?
Yeah.
Okay. Roland, would you like me to bring it up on the screen?
Yeah, do that, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Which book is this, Roland? Is this the 99?
This is the Songs of Roland.
Well,
sorry, I'm pulling it up. Songs of Roland.
Okay, so I would treat this more like nonfiction than fiction. And so I would put in this what your credentials are, in a sense. I mean, that's what's your experience? You're a singer-songwriter. And I would put that in the first line. And something about the I would use your humor throughout the blurb, because that's a big piece of what you do, I think. I really like the middle part. The honesty will catch you, the rhymes will entrance you, and the rhythm should pretty much take care of the rest. The first part is, okay, when you are making a list, I don't know how it is in other cultures, but Western culture we have been trained to remember 3 things in a list. Anything more than that, and you remember 1, 2, and then the last one, and everything else falls out because it's just the way our brains tend to work. So a list of that many things is wasted space, basically, is what I'm saying. So I would take the things that are most important out of there and make that shorter, so that you have room for the to keep it short and punchy, but also have room for the first paragraph that's about you. I would also, somewhere in there, if Amazon is not linking up to your CD that you've got out, I would put that in there somewhere. I'm not sure where you could put it, or maybe you have it, but it just seems like a natural. It should be connected to this somehow. I don't know if you have a thing in the back. I guess you do have a lot of stuff in. See, I'm looking at the book because I have the book right here because I'm supposed to read it and return it, and I'm still working on it. But your CD information about your CD should be in here, so that people can listen to your work too. Where did that go? But yeah, basically, I would change the first paragraph completely. Does that make sense, Roland? Roland's gone.
It's too much criticism.
He
Sorry.
got blown away.
I put a response in the chat.
Oh,
Oh,
okay,
did
great.
you? Okay.
And Roland, you can use that formatting tool if you want to do some paragraphs or some restructuring.
Yeah,
as well.
that sounds interesting. I didn't realize that was available. What a guy.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, Linda, we had another question from Joe about Joseph. Is this blurb already up online that I can show, or is it just here in the chat? Maybe you can unmute if you want.
I can see it in the chat.
Oh, okay.
It's
Okay.
up above in the chat.
It's up in the chat.
Okay. So what's your age range for this, Heidi?
It's 5 to 8?
5 to 8. Okay. So you're appealing to the parents mostly. Because the kids may or may not be able to read it.
Yeah, the link's above too. Above Roland's or Tony's or something.
Okay. Queen bee has fallen. No, is not moving. Okay, so is not moving is that sounds very passive.
Oh.
And is a passive word. So I would remove that somehow and come up with something else.
Okay, so
that is a little bit punchier, but not too punchy, because the adults are, screening their kids' stuff. So they want to make sure they're not going to get something that's too violent. But you got to put something in there, another word or a couple words, but that's not as passive.
Okay.
And, and has a problem. Has is another passive word. That's another word I would eliminate totally from all your blurbs. So you got to look at that list that is in the earlier slide and write them all down. I have them posted on a Post-it note because I forget them, and right on my desk, so that when I write a blurb, I can go, gotta go. Can't cut that out. So get rid of those passive words and replace it with something punchier. And okay, so the fear is that she's dead, right? You can answer.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry.
Okay. So Busby of the Queen's Guard fears the Queen's. No.
Yeah, it's a tough one, huh?
Yeah. See, I do. See, it takes me a long time to write a blurb. My brain doesn't work that quickly.
All right.
I know Tony's would, but mine doesn't.
Tony, any thoughts?
you need to put in the first paragraph that that the Queen's Guard is afraid that the Queen is dead. You need to state that somehow. And the fear of that, not that she's dead, but the fear that she's dead. And so basically it's just I think you're doing good, but you need to take out all the passive language. So go look at that list and remove them all and then rewrite it differently. But you've got a nice skeleton there from that.
Thanks. Yeah, it's basically about saving bees with sugar water. I saved a bee on the Centennial Trail with sugar water that I had. Right. So so it's Zoe saves a bee.
Right. Okay, so I see another one here.
Yeah, we had a comment from Linda regarding her,
Yeah.
I think her blurb. This is a nonfiction, so let's be on nonfiction side.
Okay. Hi, Linda. Okay, so Jess, her husband, is a crazy maker. Okay, so Linda, this is a memoir, I'm assuming, right? You can unmute yourself and respond. Linda, are you here?
I can confirm it is a memoir. Yes, I've been working with her on some of getting her book. Yeah.
Okay, then I want to know right up front about Linda, because she's essentially the character of this book. I want to know just, a short paragraph that is about her background, that it, maybe 2 sentences that about what gives her the expertise to write this book. And then after that, I would take it from there. And I think she's trying to say too much here. I think she needs to frame it as it's essentially a story about coming to peace with her decision. And she needs to be a little bit more vague about the details, because she's telling too many things, trying to tell too many things in this blurb about that should be in the first chapter of the book rather than in the blurb, because the blurb is a sales tool, not it's not the book, it's a tease. So there's just basically too much information here. That's what I would say about this. And I hope you got that.
Yes, I think she may watch it in the rerun if she's not here.
Okay. And Christine says memoir writers typically don't have expertise, but they have an important story. That is their expertise. No one else has lived their story. And so she needs to find a way to phrase it that, expertise is not the right word to use, but basically it's what makes the story important and what makes her the important person to tell this story. Because a memoir is a story, it's just not a fictional one. And it's yeah, we each have our own individual stories, but that only each of us can tell. And I think this sounds really interesting, but it's just too much information in the beginning of it.
Cool. There was another question from Diana. If you want to unmute yourself, you can go ahead and ask that question.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I understand that the blurb is prime real estate and needs to be short.
Yeah.
And the most important elements then are the hook and the call to action. But specifically with romance, there's so many different subgenres, from the really dark stuff to sweet things and everything in between.
Yes.
So, and I think a lot of this is also managing expectations, so that you don't have the, bondage porny types disappointed when your writing is not that.
Yes.
So is this the place to put a line or two, readers who enjoy this or that will like it, or don't look here for your biker kidnapping story, or how?
I do that kind of expectation stuff in the very last paragraph, right before I do the call to action. I tend to say, this wildly imaginative or something fantasy. And if you go and read the top, 20 blurbs in your subgenre, you will know exactly what language they're using, that other writers are using. And if sometimes you don't, sometimes it's not in the actual blurb. Sometimes you'll look in the, underneath where it says, the Kirkus reviews or the whatever types of reviews. Sometimes I get better language than in the actual blurbs. But they will, they're just phrases, excuse me, and catchwords that people use that are in that subgenre. That, like, if I'm telling you that this is a sweet romance, a lover that sweet romance readers will love, or that, if you're looking for something spicy, I think was the phrase that was going around a few years ago. It's probably changed since then.
Okay.
But there's lots of different phrasing that you can use. But yeah, that's where I put it, is in that very last paragraph. And I save the first few paragraphs for the story, and then the last paragraph is the selling point.
Okay. That sounds perfect. That's very helpful. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right. Are there any more questions for Linda here? Linda, did you want to look at the number one selling, like one of the number one selling books out there, and just kind of?
Sure. Let's see what it is.
So number 4 book in the country on the Amazon store is the Where the Crawdads Sing. I don't know. Let's see what the genre is on this.
Okay, I'm not seeing it on your screen.
Mike, give me a second here. Coming of age, mother and children fiction, American literature. So 45,000 reviews, lots of 5-star reviews, so pretty good. And this is the blurb from a major publisher. It's pretty short.
Can you scroll up? Oh, okay, there it is.
Yeah, so very similar. So obviously Reese Witherspoon likes it. That's cool.
Yeah, which means it's part of her book club.
Yeah, probably. New York Times bestseller review, and then basically two paragraphs. Very similar to what you were saying. Kind of the short and punchiness.
Okay, here's Cliff Haunted Clove of Quiet Time. Yeah, see, there's not really a hook there at the beginning.
Yeah, I know. So
it's the beginning part is kind of lame.
Yeah, it is. And this is from a major publisher, so
yeah.
Maybe. Do you have so you're in fantasy? Who's a big name in fantasy that you like that you would deem to be a big indie person? Do you know any? Maybe we can look them up.
Where's my brain?
Where's my brain?
I don't know. Just Google fantasy, epic fantasy.
Okay.
I mean, you're going to get all the. Well, they're not going to be indies in epic fantasy.
Okay. Maybe what I'll do is I'll go to maybe the genre. Let's see if I can find the category. Coming of age fantasy, swords and sorcery.
Yeah.
Okay.
Try that.
We'll go to swords and sorcery top 100. A girl from nowhere.
Okay. Try. Okay. Yeah. Well, Fate Marked, I recognize that. I think he's an indie.
Okay. Yeah, it's 99. It's 99 cents, so it looks like an indie. Okay. So let's go ahead and take a look at what he's done. Okay. So here's his.
Okay. Okay. The hook is there. The Fate Marked, misunderstood, worshipped, hated, murdered at birth. Their time to step into the light has come. That's a pretty good hook. It has me going, huh?
Well, even here, lines like "A great evil is coming; he can't hide anymore." It kind of sets those stakes.
Right.
Book, yeah. So I've seen this a few times where they reference if fans of X will love this as well. Is that an important thing to do?
Yeah, I don't know. I think
that goes towards the bondage porny question that was earlier.
well,
That kind of setting the stakes.
To me, I'm looking at it and I'm going, is that against the Amazon terms of service? Because I don't know. I don't know if it's just in ads you're not supposed to mention other people's books. I dislike that because it sets up expectations, and you don't know why somebody loved Lord of the Rings, and you may not be able to deliver. And I don't want, and also for me, when I'm trying to, I mean, you all might be different, but when I write a book and I sit there and go, okay, now I'm supposed to market this thing. And they go, and the first thing people say, well, what's your book like? And I go, who is your book like? And I just look at it and I can never say, oh, I write my book's like this, because it's not. It's totally different. And I think that's because I write weird stuff that's over in the, if Lord of the Rings is in the middle of the road, I'm way over there in the ditch, because I'm writing about stuff that's totally different. It might be a similar world, but the actual conflict is totally different.
Does that go back to your earlier comment of writers can't hype themselves correctly?
No.
So should you be doing that even though you don't want to do it?
I don't know. I don't think so, because I think I've learned to hype myself better than I used to. I don't think it's that. I just think it's that it seems very dissimilar to what I'm writing. Lord of the Rings is a epic quest story, but it's also very much a guy's story. They're not talking about, oh my God, what are we going to eat for dinner tonight? Damn it. Whereas women are looking at, I hate to be sexist. Women are looking at the smaller things. They tend to look at the connections between people. They tend to be looking at a different world. And part of that's conditioning. Oh, Tony's typing away, I can see. But I think that traditionally women have told different stories, and as more women are coming into fantasy and science fiction and getting their voices heard. Hobbits are constantly talking about food. That's true, but they're not talking about cooking it, except for sausages and mushrooms. But so I just think that that's part of what the deal is. Epic fantasy is traditionally a guy's thing, as is space opera and science fiction.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that Fate Marked has a good blurb.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks.
For the most part.
Yeah, thanks for taking a look at that. Because I know a number of us write fantasy type of stuff, so it'd be good to look at thing. But I really agree with you on the doing your research, seeing what people are doing. I know I copy a lot of my blurbs off of what Shane Silvers does, and he's a big urban fantasy guy.
Yeah.
And he's a big bestseller, so I try to mimic a lot of what he does. Does anybody have any other questions for Linda? Or Linda, do you have any other comments you wanted to share?
He's also done an interesting thing here. He said, Fate Marked is now a #1 Amazon bestseller. I know every time I open my Kindle, it's on the thing they're trying to sell it to me. Oh, yeah. And it's in 10 categories, and start your epic adventure of 4,000 plus page epic adventure today. So he's telling you how long the book is, and he's not saying the series is complete, but he's telling you how long it is. And for epic fantasy, they tend to write huge, massive books, which is another reason why my books aren't like anybody else's, because I just have, I have one huge, massive book, and I divide it into 5 books, because I don't like to read big, massive books, and I don't like to carry them around either. And there are some people who still buy paper. So, it just, that's all I have to say. But basically, figure out what your genre is and practice. Do your research. Research is crucial.
Okay. Awesome. If everybody wants to hop in the chat and tell Linda that she's awesome. And I thank you for all the volunteers who threw their blurbs up here. I had mine sitting off in the corner and I didn't have the guts to pull mine up. So thank you so much, Linda, for taking the time to help us and to go into a few blurbs. That was very helpful. I think helps give examples to everybody else as they begin to go on. Just a reminder to everybody, we're going to continue this for a few more minutes, but I'm going to stop the recording here, and then this recording will be available on YouTube that I will send out via an email after this meeting is done. So please look for that if you want to rewatch this, or if you forgot what you need to do for your blurb for the people who donated blurbs, you can come back and rewatch it and hear what Linda has to say. So I'm going to hit stop recording.